With hip hop having turned 50 this year, it felt like there were a lot of eyes on the genre for its landmark birthday, and expectations may have been set a little high. With these high expectations of hip hop this year, maybe that's why we, or at least I've heard, what feels like more discussion about the genre in terms of quality. In the first few months of the year, I remember seeing people mention like, "Oh, there's no good hip hop out yet." Now, this was in March, and it was early enough in the year that you could kind of ignore it. But this was basically confirmed by the time we reached the halfway point in the year and had yet to get a number one hip hop album on the Billboard 200. And around that time, we're getting a bunch of headlines and articles talking about it as well. Now, this did change when Uzi dropped their album in July, but, still interesting to say the least. Among the reasons that people gave out for this delay, which did include major artists not dropping, there was also a discussion around the idea of us not having a new, younger star, and that people are mostly back outside now. Now, major artists not dropping is a pretty normal thing, I feel. Like, major artists are not going to drop every year. That is just not sustainable, and it's not expected across any other genre. Like, hip-hop is the only genre that I can think of that actually has artists drop at a very consistent rate. But that I don't think is a reason to not have a number one album on the Billboard 200 earlier in the year. Because even last year, like, we had Kendrick drop, right? He dropped in May, but Gunna had a number one album in January. So that kind of feels like a silly point to try to push. Like, you can have major artists, and even the major artists may not even get to number one if they drop trash albums. But going on to the next point, not having an artist, like a younger artist, to fill this star role may be a major player in it, because right now we don't have anyone that's filling that XXXTentacion, Juice WRLD / Pop Smoke filled hole. And especially when those artists are artists that I felt could have kind of pushed the genre in a different direction, maybe. Because right now, we're all getting like the same kind of almost evolution of mumble rap, but it's all mumble and trap sounds still. We haven't really gotten to that next step yet, and it almost feels like it may have overstayed its welcome. But the last point of people being back outside is, in my opinion, likely the biggest reason for the decline, or at least slow adoption rate this year. And I mean, this is not meant to be a whole real rap versus commercial rap debate in any way. This is just a overview of the genre in total. But there's definitely a distinction between inside and outside music. And in general, outside music is going to be more appealing and a safer option for most people. And that's what's going to get more ears and listens and plays. Like, you can have people putting out really solid rap projects. They're rapping their ass off. But if it doesn't sound like you can listen to it outside, like, people aren't going to listen to it. If it's hoe-scaring music, people aren't going to play it. They'll be like, "Oh no, I'm just going to listen to this in the house, maybe in the car." Even that's kind of pushing it. And the other thing, people tend to listen to music, like the place that people tend to listen to music most are in the car, in the house sometimes, but also just being outside. And not everyone is going to be wanting to listen to someone rap their ass off while they're driving around. I mean, there are outliers. There's people like me, but that's not the vast majority of listeners. And honestly, I think that's probably why we've noticed that drop. Now, with this in mind, I want to draw attention to a tweet that I saw recently from Ebro that says, "I got a call saying," now the quote, "It should be noted that many major record labels have deprioritized signing rappers. The focus is now African music and Latin music. Rappers better stop being boring and talking about the same shit over and over, chasing TikTok success and comment sections." Now, if you've been outside or know somebody who goes outside, you know that African and Latin music have been very popular. Like, those sounds are just everywhere. And there's a whole nother discussion to be had about the difference in quality between American music and international music, especially in terms of hip hop and rap. But that's a whole nother discussion that we'll get into maybe later. And now the second part of this tweet, which honestly, maybe Ebro's just actually saying it or paraphrasing, because that's a tone shift that doesn't sound like someone would say that over the phone regarding like record label stuff. But anyways, this I think is the more important bit to discuss. Commercial rap isn't interesting anymore. And honestly, I don't think it's been interesting in a while outside of the major artists. Like major artists being like Drake, Kendrick, Kanye. Like I wouldn't even put J. Cole in there. Like these are artists that drop semi-regularly. I mean, even Thugger to an extent, but he's not even that interesting after a while. Like these artists always draw attention, and they're always doing not necessarily something different, but they're doing things that are more engaging than a lot of their peers. Like Drake, however you may feel about his recent projects, like he's still out and touring, and he's constantly in the public's eye. Kanye was, outside of his craziness recently, always had something going on. Like with Donda and Donda 2, he was doing those crazy release parties or listening parties. And even before that, like Yeezy season, like he built up a whole lot of stuff. And then Kendrick, like he's way more reserved than both of them, but he's one of those artists that, because of the music that he's put out, is going to draw attention just regardless. So these, like, they're outliers at this point. And I don't know that, like, they're not necessarily making the best music. Like they're making good music. They're making really good commercial music, but they're not making music that real rap nerds are going to be like, oh yes, this is the best music I've ever listened to. Like, there's always going to be people who say it's good, but in general, I think it's accepted that those artists make good music. This is also something that everyone has been saying for a while, like not necessarily the commercial rap, but the bit about rappers being boring and talking about the same shit over and over. After, like people have been talking about it for years, like they're tired of it, but there haven't been any consequences. Like these artists kept getting money, kept getting attention, but now that there's stagnation, maybe we'll see a shift. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we just kind of got to wait and see. Like I said, this is something that people have been talking about for years. Like people have always been saying, okay, that's cool. Now, are you going to rap about something else? Or I need you to rap about something else because this is not interesting to me anymore. Like stuff along those lines. And like I said, there's been no consequence because the general public doesn't necessarily care, and they may have only recently started being like, okay, no, I'm kind of over it. And these are people who don't listen to music or new music constantly. People, if you're watching this, you probably listen to music the second it drops, so you are an outlier as well. So whatever. Anyways, with all that said, just changing what you're talking about is not going to fix the issue. This is also something that I mentioned many times before. And while there are many good rappers out there that have very engaging and interesting topics to rap about, they aren't the best musicians. It's not enough to just rap well. You need to be able to put the song as a whole together, or have somebody help you, or have a team help you. Production and sequencing is just as important as lyrics. Now, you can be all like, oh no, production doesn't matter, all matters is what he says. And while that's fine, if that's your cup of tea, if you don't care about the production, sure, whatever. But I think for the general public, again, you need a bit of both. Like, I don't know, like outside of rap nerds like us, most people aren't paying that much attention to the lyrics. They're paying more attention to the overall vibe of the album. And that's why a lot of people, I think, liked Utopia and also don't understand when I say that it sounds like Kanye. But, whatever. Now, this all does seem negative, right? But it is something that I feel like we need to discuss. Like, it's something that people need to bring up. And at this point, given, how slow this year has been for a lot of artists, maybe we'll start to see a shift. With all that said, and speaking of shifts, I feel like there have been some shifts in hip hop recently that many seem to be latching onto, like in terms of listeners and other artists. We did just see that Drake listened to Tizo Touchdown's album and had very good things to say about it. But Tizo's not for everyone, because I don't know if you've listened to their music, but it's pretty different. It's pretty unique. And it's a departure from traditional hip hop for sure. I've also seen other artists that many adore from the blog era, such as Isaiah Rashad, back artists like Paris, Texas, and Kenny Mason, both of whom lean more into the rap rock sound. For a moment, we had more boy band group sounds like Brockhampton. AG Club is still doing their thing. But, there's a whole lot of different sounds happening right now, and I don't know what's going to happen next. Are we going to get into this new or return to an era where artists are going to be experimenting again? Are we going to get into like a second blog era where it's like there's just so much good music coming out? I don't know. We just got to wait and see. And I don't know what's going to happen next. Now, I do want to end by saying there are always artists out there for the type of music you like. Hip hop has yet to fully embrace subgenres, but they do exist. So, while it's not easy to find an album or an artist that you like, just put in a little bit more effort. You'll find somebody. And there's always going to be a sound that you like, and there's always going to be somebody making that sound. So while all this sounded negative and very big thoughts, you can bring it down to a personal level. If there's an artist that you like, just keep rocking with them and share them. But I think that's all I got. I've rambled on long enough. I just wanted to talk about the current state of affairs in hip hop, given that it's 50 years, and I just saw that tweet yesterday. That's really what set it all off. But let me know in the comments below what you think about the current state of hip hop. Where do you think it's going to go next? What sort of music are we going to get? Are we going to get a shift in terms of subgenres, or is hip hop just going to die? Anyways, while you're down there, also like and subscribe to see more ramblings and content like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.